Hi everyone, welcome. So glad you can join with us again today. We have people from all over the world that are joining in. I was just, every time right before I start, I just check down the list of all the different countries. And so this is really a shared global experience with all of you signing in from so many different locations. And as usual, we had our movie poll throughout the week to see what the topics and themes would be that we would address for all of us for this beautiful awakening that we're going through right now. And the movie poll results were in English, giving up the struggle of the split mind came in first. Second was attraction to idols, illusions, versus opening to the real world. And third was fear of surrendering to God's will. And then it was just reversed a little bit for Spanish. Number one as well was giving up the struggle of the split mind. And number two was fear of surrendering to God's will. And the third one in Spanish was moving through meaninglessness and disillusionment to find purpose. So the movie that we have today is going to really help us with those topics as we really explore within our own mind and our own consciousness this journey toward the light, to go deeper and deeper inside. And some of you have been coming every week. You can tell the recent string of movies have been very strong. We had Dark City, we had Fatima. What was our movie last week? Thomas Keating, Father Thomas Keating. Yeah, that was a good one. Because Thomas Keating felt a draw to the Catholic Church and to God when he was a child, but didn't even tell his parents. He snuck off in the morning to go to church, and then later had this deep calling to join a monastery, to follow a very religious life. And that was very inspirational. I received a lot of comments about how helpful it was to watch a movie about his life and see the struggles and the challenges that he went through. And yet we could say, in one sense, the Spirit called him at a very early age, and he was called into his vocation of this deep inner life of prayer and contemplation. And maybe the biggest temptation he had was when he was sitting around just waiting to be drafted, and through the help of one of the people in the church, a leader in the church, he was able to avoid the draft and not be drafted, and was actually told, "This war is not for you." And that's one of those beautiful, miraculous moments that was a key turning point in his life, and then he really gave himself over to a very devoted life to God. Today's movie is to help give you inspiration to give your life in a very devoted way over to God. And what I like about this movie is the main character, who will be making the documentary, and includes himself in the documentary. He became very successful in the world's terms, and he was an excellent student with a 4.0 grade average. He excelled in sports. He excelled in all the things that are available really as a youngster growing up in the East Coast United States, and then became a very, very successful movie maker, a director. And I would say that was one of his greatest skills, was he had the skill of a storyteller. We know in all the great traditions, the Native American traditions and traditions all over the world, that storytelling is a very important part of passing on wisdom and passing on lessons to everyone in the tribe, whether it seems to be a smaller tribe or a larger tribe or a global tribe. And filmmaking, here we are all watching a movie together. Filmmaking was this man's, his area, his genre, his area of specialty. And where some are storytellers with verbal stories, and some are skilled at writing novels and telling stories in that way, the theater and specifically movie making is quite an extreme form of storytelling. It seems very, very realistic. It's easy to really follow along with the movies because there's such audio-visual experiences, and it's easy to lose track of what you perceive to be the world around you in the theater or at home while you're watching a movie, because you get so engrossed, so engaged in the movie that you can forget that you're even watching a movie. And what I like about today's movie is that this gentleman I'm speaking of, his name is Tom Shadyac, and he's a Christian man, a very bright man who made movies. I think his first hit was with Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura. So we're talking comedy. I mean, that's wacky comedy. Some of you have seen Ace Ventura. It's wacky comedy with, it really uses the skills of Jim Carrey very well, but it takes a great producer, a great movie maker to collaborate and bring those out. Because I think before that movie, basically Jim Carrey maybe had done some stand-up and he'd done a few projects, but once you go on the big screen with your comedy, it can touch the lives of millions of people. And then millions of people did laugh at that movie. And then, of course, he followed that up. Some of you might have seen the movie Liar, Liar with Jim Carrey. That's a Tom Shadyac movie. That's really a good one. I think every time I watch that movie, Liar, Liar, I just see more things. So he not only gave himself over to making these big budget comedy movies, but after Ace Ventura, they started to get a little more meaningful, like Liar, Liar, Bruce Almighty, Evan Almighty, some of the ones, these are like classics now in our Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment. So we have Tom Shadyac to thank, along with Jim Carrey and a great cast of characters, for taking some of these really deep themes, I would say spiritual themes, and putting them in a movie and teaching them with comedy. That's probably the best way to retain spiritual concepts. If you are watching comedies and you're having your insights and your ahas, that's the best. I can't think of a better way for it to really register in your heart and have a huge impact on your perception of the world. Now with Tom Shadyac, he is a good example for all of us because he followed along the conditioning of the world, which was to strive, to effort, to learn, and to achieve and accomplish in a way that the world calls successful. It's always great when you see these child prodigies in music and the arts, and even in terms of spelling bees and all kinds of things, and their parents are supporting them and nurturing them and seeing them display their amazing skills. And certainly in the back of the parent's mind usually is, how am I going to turn this into making a living? Because that seems to be the preoccupation on planet Earth, is how am I going to make a living? So many times you hear stars say, I love singing, or I loved playing basketball in the backyard, or I enjoy these different aspects of my life, and then at some point the make a living at it comes in. In other words, you're supposed to succeed. That's the point, is to not barely survive, but to succeed, to have material success. And that's very much a part of the programming. I don't think, really, if you look at the teachings of Buddha or the teachings of Jesus or Ramana Maharshi, it really wasn't in there. You never hear Ramana going, now go out and make a good living and be the best that you can be in the world. Or Jesus never seemed to be encouraging people to succeed in terms of the world. I am calling you out of the world. That doesn't sound like an encouragement to succeed in the world. And to be told, be still, is not the most congruent thing with succeeding in this world. If we look at A Course in Miracles, I remember, I'm so glad I just read the Course on my own, and I did share my miracles with my family and my parents, but I didn't go home and go, oh, I read a great section today. What is it? I need do nothing. Boy, my dad would have had a field day with that one. He would have just smiled and goes, yeah, that's what I was concerned about. You've now picked up a teaching that says I need do nothing, and now I'm sure you'll be a lazy, no good, dirty, rotten bum, which was his great concern for me. And he reminded me of that many times, using just those words. But it would not have been a good response. Be free. Jesus says I need do nothing. That would not have gone over well in the household at all. And yet what we have today is a movie of someone who has a wonderful family, he's raised with a wonderful family, he excels, and he wins trophies, and then he goes off and he moves to Hollywood, and he becomes very quickly one of the most successful directors and movie makers that are out there. He became as known in Hollywood for his movies and his directing as fast as Jim Carrey, who was the actor in his movies, became well known as an actor. He rose to fame in Hollywood very quickly. In terms of worldwide acclaim, most people know the actors better than the directors. Who's the director? Who's the producer? No, they say it's a Jim Carrey movie. Jim Carrey. The one that's on the screen, that's in front of the camera, is the one that usually blows up in terms of fame and notoriety and success. But as we know, for any of you that follow along with Jim Carrey, he's quite philosophical. He also, along with those movies being very spiritually related, I think that the actors that play in them, the Jim Carreys, the Keanu Reeves, Keanu is very famous for the Matrix trilogy, but they are also reflections of questioning the world that has been presented to all of us, and questioning the norms, and questioning the beliefs, and pondering, is there something more than what this world shows us? So one of the most important things I think you'll get from this movie is that Tom Shadyac, with all of the success that he has, he will reach a point where he starts to ask himself the question, am I happy? I am progressing, I'm becoming more wealthy, I'm becoming more renowned, more well-known, and do I have a corresponding happiness that is coming along with all of this material success? It seems to be in this world that is perhaps one of the greatest distractions to spiritual awakening, is success as the world defines it. We grow up with this idea that to succeed is to accumulate, whether you're talking about skills and abilities, whether you're talking about intelligence, whether you're talking about money or possessions, or even in terms of having a family and children and how successful the children are. All of these self-concept goals are part of a system that's made up by the ego to keep you from knowing who you are, to keep you from the awareness of the I am presence that is before time was, as Jesus taught, before Abraham was, I am. The ego has a great investment in you not experiencing your I am nature, your spirit nature. It has a huge investment. In fact, it made up all of time and space. It made up this world with one purpose in mind, to keep you from remembering who you are as a perfect child of God. So the entire system of time and space and its successes is designed to completely keep you distracted and searching in the wrong direction. So Jesus says that many places, seek not outside yourself, for it will fail, and you will weep each time an idol falls. He does say at one point that you may have noticed that about every ego pursuit that you have followed, when you have achieved it, it has not satisfied you. And that's why the ego is forced to shift to yet another, to more goals, more worldly goals, to keep you from questioning the thought system that made up all this pursuit and all these external goals. So the ego is quite clever and ingenious at just shifting the goal from one thing which does not satisfy to another, which does not satisfy to yet another. And at some point there is a disillusionment, like, what am I doing? What am I following? Where I'm trying to pursue what I thought was good and right and normal to pursue, and I'm not experiencing happiness with it. So in this movie, we have a beautiful example in Tom Shadyac where he pursues the ways of the world, we'll say success and fortune and fame and so forth. It does not satisfy him, and then he begins to question. He begins to question, what is the purpose of this life? What is the meaning of this world? What should I be doing with my time? What can I pour my heart into where I'll feel a sense of wholeness and completion and compassion and love? He starts to ask some of the deeper questions that are so covered over by this whole world of time and space. And I think that's important because we actually do need examples of those who has seemed to succeed, and then they report back to all of us, it's not what you think it is. I've heard Jim Carrey actually say this quite a few times. He said, I'm glad that I seemed to succeed the way that I did so I could see the meaninglessness and the unfulfillment of that success or that fame. And now, he says, I can tell everyone else that this isn't what it seems to be. The world is set up in a way that it isn't what it seems to be. It doesn't bring what it's supposed to bring to us, supposed to in terms of the ego telling us we can find fulfillment and contentment in the things of this world apart from our Creator. That is the biggest lie, and this world was made as a defense against the light. In fact, a lot of times when we start talking about God, this quote will come to mind. The world was made as a place where God could enter not. It was made as an attack on God, a place where God could enter not. And from that perspective, you can start to realize that that's why part of the teachings in the Course workbook is lesson number 128, the world I see holds nothing that I want. This is very profound because as long as the mind is still seeking for something in the world or from the world, it's seeking for happiness and fulfillment where it cannot be found. And that's to say that God knows not form, and that as you pursue the goals of form and the goals of linear time, you are seeking for love in a direction in which love cannot be found. You can find disillusionment in the world, you can find heartbreak, you can find greed and guilt and shame and lots of things you can find in the generated world of time and space, not love. Love is within. Love is within your very being, at the core of the being. One of the early teachings from the text that really inspired me was it's impossible to seek for pleasure without finding pain. And before this movie, Jesus was turning that around, and he's saying it's impossible to seek for worldly success without experiencing worldly failure. Basically, the teaching is the same. If you go for something of the world which the ego made, then you will experience perhaps the illusion of success, but also you will have the illusion of failure as well. Because these dualities, these polarities, these false idols are just designed to keep the mind distracted from the present moment. So today we actually have a treat because Tom Shadyac, we're going to follow his movie, and the title of the movie is I Am. So you can remember that. That's a very well-named movie. The other movies were very spiritually oriented. This one is extremely oriented towards this shift of mind from a mindset of lack and fear and future pursuits and the desire for material acquisition and accomplishment to the there must be a better way experience of coming to the I am presence, coming to unity, coming to connection, connecting with your heart in the most purest way, coming to feel gratitude, to feel this overwhelming sense of oneness with everything and everyone. That's what this movie is about. And what I like is it's coming from a man who tried it the world's way, who succeeded on the world's terms, and then put it into reverse and decided there has to be something else, because he didn't experience happiness with all of the money and fame and success that he had. He actually made a turnaround and said, I'm going to make a movie attempting to discover what is truly meaningful and what is truly important. I would say the two things that stand out in my mind that are helpful in this turnaround, making the turn back to God, back to the light. In the case of Tom Shadyac, I would say first he experienced a sense of disillusionment. And I would say that everyone who goes on a spiritual journey, at some point you will experience disillusionment, where it just feels like the wheels fall off. It feels like your life is in disarray. You wonder what the point of life is. You are disillusioned with what has been believed and what has been presented about this world. And the second one for Tom Shadyac, I think you'll discover, is pain. He will come across a period in his life that is intensely painful. And this is a time that is so painful that he can't really see a point in living into a future, living on. It's so painful that he begins to question, what is this all about? What is the point? Thoughts of what has gone wrong. And I think for many people this is part of the turn. When you come to a place of extreme pain, and I would say in the case with Tom, it's extreme, prolonged pain. And out of the fertile soil of this extreme disillusionment comes an opening heart, an opening mind. Some of you are familiar with Mary Baker Eddy, and when I studied, of course, her famous work was Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, but she wrote prolifically. And then when I looked more at her life, she seemed to have a very hard life that had a lot of emotional pain, and then went to a point of extreme emotional and physical pain for a long period of time. And then at one point she fell on the snow and the ice, and seemingly had so many internal injuries that they carried her inside, and basically a doctor came in to check on her, and basically when the doctor left the room, told her friends, she's not going to make it, she's a goner. But actually that was her point of turning around, where she reached over, grabbed a Bible, and she read the famous parable of Jesus and the paralytic, where the paralyzed man had such faith that he got a couple people, while Jesus was teaching in this house, he got a couple people to get him on the roof to help him remove the tiles from the top of the roof and lower him down right in front of Jesus while Jesus is teaching, and this paralyzed man had friends lower him down after they took the tiles off of a roof, and right in front of Jesus is when he's teaching. And of course, Jesus, with all of his love, he basically stopped everything because this was more important to him than the teachings. And he decided to turn it into a teaching opportunity and basically told the paralyzed man, "Arise and take up your bed and walk." And the man did. And everybody gasped that was in the house. And that was the end of the teaching session. That was the event of the day. That just shows how powerful the mind is. Well, Mary Baker Eddy, when she'd been told by her doctor she was basically going to die, she reached over with the little strength she had, she grabbed her Bible and she read that parable, and then she got out of her bed and walked out, and then the doctor and the friends turned white because they thought it was the ghost of Mary Baker Eddy coming out of that room. But she finally tapped into that strength, that power, that love that is the Christ. And she got up out of the bed and she taught it. She spent the rest of her life teaching that love and that strength. So in that sense, that's what I like about this movie. This is more of a modern day movie, a documentary made by a man who pursued success, who achieved success, and then became disillusioned, and then went into extreme pain, and then he rose up into looking for what is real and what is true. He rose up in looking for connectedness, for looking for our oneness, for his desire to experience love. It was so strong in him that he turned from his lifestyle, he turned from his previous life. He walked away from the table of Hollywood, and he basically went through a very deep healing and ceased making movies until he did make a beautiful comeback movie on forgiveness called Brian Banks. And if you haven't seen that, I would write that down. If you want a really good forgiveness movie, you watch Tom Shadyac's comeback movie, Brian Banks. Even when Hollywood turned their back on him, he did not turn his back on his calling, on his love. And we need modern day examples of those who have renounced the world and who have said, wait a minute, let's stop. What about love? What about compassion? What about the value of what's in your heart? We need people who are witnesses of these core values, because all of us are called into the I Am presence. And we're not all filmmakers, but we can be inspired by one who is using his skills and his abilities as a great filmmaker to reach all of us and say, remember what's important. Remember to follow your heart. Don't let the conditioning of the world that you seem to be raised in, don't let that throw you off. Many of us, we had parents who had expectations for us. And part of those expectations are they did want us to succeed. I know underneath all the times that my father told me, my biological father, not my heavenly father, but my biological father told me, dirty, lazy, no good, rotten bum, get a job. That was the spiel. I know underneath it, he just wanted me to succeed. That's basically what he was like saying, I'm going to tell you what I don't want you to be, but what you are right now. But please don't end up like this. I want you to be successful. I want you to really be successful. And that's the world's conditioning. We receive it from our parents. We receive it from our teachers. And as we grow up, some of us, we have some friends, we receive it from some of those friends. Other friends we call forth, they go, chuck it all, go for God. But many of our friends are interested in university, career, making it in the world, succeeding. That's part of the mesmerism of this world. That's part of the conditioning of the ego, is to be a success at something. Succeed at something, please. You know? And what Jesus is calling us to, he's calling us to a state of being that we were created by God as perfect spirit child of God. He's just saying return to innocence. He's saying return to the present moment. Return to the I am presence. He's not even telling us we're supposed to mix with the ego or mix with the teachings of the ego. He's saying to us, go cold turkey on the ego. And there's even a point in A Course in Miracles where Jesus says, do not breathe life into your failing ego. This is after you've spent years working with the Course, and you're dismantling and you're going through all kinds of healings, and then just when your eyes wander a little bit towards something in the world, Jesus, that's what he says, do not breathe life into your failing ego. He's like, unplug. That's what Neo was told by Troy at the beginning of the first Matrix movie. It looks like you need to unplug, Troy says. That was the Holy Spirit speaking through Troy after he knocked on his door when Neo was sleeping at his computer. And Jesus is saying the same thing to us. He's like, you need to unplug. Don't try to make friends with the ego. Don't try to bargain with it. Don't be afraid of it. But also, do not breathe life into your failing ego. I like it. He's given it to us straight. So I hope you enjoy this movie as much as I do. A lot of people have not seen this movie. It's not like a very famous movie, but this movie comes from Tom Shadyac's heart. He is sending us a love letter with this movie. He is offering us a way to save time. He's saying, don't go through the mistakes I did. You don't have to go through trying to succeed and then go through extreme pain. He's offering us a way through his movie to save ourselves time and not be distracted by these ego conditionings that many of us were raised with from our childhood. And for many of us, we did not question them or question them deeply. We simply went along with the programming. We saw so many other people going along with the program, we figured we might as well too. But actually, that's not the most helpful thing. So enjoy the movie, and I will pop in during the movie, and of course, later on today, we'll discuss this very deeply. Beautiful. So that's the first phase that you go through when you come to this world, is you have to go for self-improvement. You have to learn. We call that education. You have to achieve. You have to build a self-concept and grow physically, mentally into a consumer. That's what all that's for. Just to be a consumer. And of course it shouldn't be surprised, because the ego is the belief in lack. And if the ego made your body, and if the ego made your personality, and if the ego made time, or the context in which your personality seems to learn and grow and achieve and accomplish, then the whole story is a story of lack. And the end point is to be a good consumer. Someone who can earn money and spend it as a good consumer. That's not saying much for our true identity at all, because that's a lie. There's none of that going on in heaven. There's no learning, there's no achieving, there's no accomplishing, there's no material success, and there's no intelligence in terms of learning things about stuff in heaven. That what Tom Shadyac is beginning to point out in this movie is that, as he said, we've been fed a lie. We have believed in a lie. And it's all a substitute identity for our true Christ identity, for our true I am nature. The world is a substitution. I think Madonna had a song, was it Substitute for Love? That song right there, that's a Madonna song, Substitute for Love. So that's why when you go on the spiritual journey, Jesus is saying the same thing that Buddha said, and Ramana and all the saints and mystics: empty your mind of everything you think you know, of everything you think, of everything that you have believed, and come with wholly empty hands unto your God. That God knows you as perfect, and everything else that you tried to add on to perfection has been a lie. Everything else. Not just some. Everything that's been added on to spirit, added on to perfection, has been a lie. So the first phase, Tom Shadyac's saying, yeah, that's what I was taught. Stand out. Be better. You need to survive, you need to stand out from the rest. And why would it be so important to stand out from the rest, to individuate myself, to build a better self? Competition. Or as he said, I was taught to win. There's the motive. You have to win in order to be a good consumer, because you have to have some money to consume with. So you have to be a good winner at competition to be a good consumer, or accumulate enough that you can play the game of consumption. This is wild. This is not talked about as something that's strange. This is talked about as the way things are in the world. This is the aim of all education of the world, is to indoctrinate your mind and confirm the lie, so that you will never question the basis for this world. And we saw Tom Shadyac saying in one of his early interviews there, he was going out interviewing all these people that are people that he admires and respects, and he's asking them the question, what's wrong with the world? Because he himself is saying there seems to be a poison underneath this world. He hasn't even mentioned the word ego yet, but he's calling it poison. That's a good synonym for ego. Poison. instead of calling it the devil, poison. We're dealing with poison in the mind. It's a poisonous belief system. It's based on death. It's based on sickness, on greed, on consumption. And why would you want to become a good consumer when the poison made up the consumer, made up the consumption? So this is why we're being told we have to free our mind. That's what Morpheus told Neo in the Matrix. I'm trying to free your mind. And that's exactly what Tom Shadyac's talking about here, only he's using the terms that he intuitively feels, like he's had a successful life, he's faced tremendous pain, disillusionment, and now he's going around to openly talk to people about what is wrong with this world and what is this poison underneath. So we see that he, like most everyone, most all of us, has gone through phase 1 of the lie, which is you better be better than other people. You better strive to be better. And all of the saints and mystics are saying, be who you are. Don't strive to be better than others. Be who you are as God created you. That's a striking contrast. Okay. So, in the Beyond All Idols section of A Course in Miracles, Jesus gives us a question. It's great in the book when Jesus asks you a question directly. And he starts off his paragraph in there, what is an idol? Do you think you know? So Jesus is asking us, what is an idol? Do you think you know? And then, of course, he's always so gracious to tell us, which I like. I always like that about Jesus. Ask the question, I'm very still, like a deer looking into headlights. And then he gives the answer. And he says an idol is for more of something. It does not matter more of what. Now, he's describing what Tom Shadyac is just finding out from his friends, that to want more, to want betterment for a personal identity, to want to have a better life in this world, is mental illness. It's sick. Why is it sick? Because the present moment has everything that you could ever want, truly, if you want to be happy. The present moment has it, has happiness. In fact, in the workbook, Jesus says, what do you want that forgiveness cannot give? Do you want happiness, quietness, a certainty of purpose? All this forgiveness offers you, and more. It sparkles on your eyes as you greet the new day. I mean, he blew me away when I was reading Forgiveness is the Key to Happiness. It's some of the most poetic, spectacular teachings you'll ever hear. And basically what forgiveness is coming back to the present moment and letting go of the timeline. Forgiving the timeline, forgiving the past, forgiving the future. Letting the Alpha and the Omega come together. Like Jesus said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's saying, find me in the present moment. That's where I am. That's where you are. That's where we are, is in the present moment. We live in the present moment. And there's been many traditions and beautiful ancient civilizations that have taught this. There have been civilizations, I believe it was a tribe in Africa, that basically every year, at the end of the year, everybody would pile all of their possessions together. And we're like, oh, that's sweet. Pile them all together. Is it like a group pile to share possessions, like a group commune? No, they would pile them, the Hopis. The Hopis would, at the end of every year, they would pile all the possessions into a big pile to burn them. Don't you love it? How's that for a contrast for consumerism, for storage sheds, buying, you got so much stuff you can't fit it into your big house, you got to buy a storage shed and pay money every month to store your excess stuff. Wait, what did the Hopis do? They put it all together and they started fresh every new year by burning all the possessions. You got to love that. You know, there are ancient tribes and traditions that were so in alignment with truth that they basically would say, they would teach the young, the children, you don't ever want more than you need. Wow, that's a beautiful teaching. That whatever you need, you have, and will be provided, and you never want excess. Wow, that kind of contradicts save for a rainy day, save for the future. We've been believing in a lie. It has no basis in reality. It keeps us from knowing who we are in the present moment. And it is seductive, especially when you perceive a world where most people around you are going after chasing something imaginary. I like to call it hypothetical. The future is hypothetical. It's as if there's something there to strive for, but it's not there. It never was there. It's a trick. So we'll see more of that as we go on into this movie, is that there are beautiful wisdom teachers that are basically saying it's mental illness to save for a rainy day. It's mental illness to store away. I think Jesus said something, wasn't it in the New Testament? Don't store your treasures in barns where thief and moth and rust. He was talking about, he was giving it to us straight 2,000 years ago. He put an end to consumerism 2,000 years ago. He put a good end to it. He snuffed it out. Store not your treasures up on earth, where in barns where thieves and rust and moth can destroy them. He was giving us a straight shot to the kingdom of heaven. And you can say, well, there's a lot that's happened since Jesus taught us. Yeah, that's much ado about nothing. I think we should go back to the original teachings of Jesus, the way shower, who knew the way to the kingdom of heaven, and not get caught up into all these historical arguments and cultural developments. They aren't developments. The kingdom of heaven has always been in the present moment. It's never been in time. It can't be found there. So isn't this fun? We're on a journey with one of the great modern day storytellers, Tom Shadyac, and he's giving us a tour de force of illusions. And he's saying, it's a lie. And the quote at the beginning of his movie was basically, if you really can see it, you can see the lie that this world is. That's what the quote was at the beginning. Really, it's really showing us. He's exposing the lie. He's going after the unspeakable. You're not supposed to talk about this in society with your families and friends. But not only that, Tom Shadyac's making a whole movie for us to go after the lie and to show us a lie is just a lie. You need not give your holy mind over to the lie. If you had a few weeks, I could tell you the parable of David, which was going for peace of mind and the kingdom of heaven, and letting all things else added unto me. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you. It's actually quite fun to have all else added unto you. Not that it means anything in itself, but it's fun. It just feels fun to feel alive, to feel aligned with God, to feel joyful, to feel happy. That feels great. It feels great. And the thing is, you don't need that other phase of the world. All the skills that were learned by the ego for the cause of separation have to be unlearned. And then you just can enjoy the miracle. Everything is orchestrated by the Holy Spirit without any sense of personal effort. It's a life of ease is what the miracle is. It's a life of miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong. Leave it to Jesus. The ego, oh, it's so hard, it's a struggle, it's a pain and pain and pain. Miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong. Be of good cheer. Be happy. So Tom is taking us on a journey. Let's get back to the journey here. I just had to stop for a moment because, when Plato speaks, we need to listen. All wars come from the comfort of the body. This is Plato speaking. This isn't just anything or anyone. This is Plato. This is before the time of Jesus. This is the ancient Greeks. This is Plato telling us that all wars come from the comfort of the body. And even in your own household, you can test this out and find that this is true. You don't even need to explore it in terms of society, where it's obviously true. What do you think political conflicts are about? Anything that involves greed, anything that involves some people deserve something that other people don't deserve. Even in basic terms of human rights, you have to really go closely into that concept of human rights, because as long as the comfort of the body is part of those human rights, then you will find the war continues. And that's why the mystics and saints have said, go within, still your mind, go into the silence. In the silence, you find the transcendence of the world, the transcendence of the body. But that is very profound. All wars involve the comfort of the body. All political discussions and dissent is around it. Right now they had a polar vortex, and there was this huge state in the United States, Texas, that typically doesn't have cold weather, and cold and freezing, and people dying, children freezing to death and dying, people dying, and we could say great discomfort. People trying to sleep in their cars, going to a furniture store that's opened up so they can sleep on the chairs, the beds, trying to survive the cold. And then there was a senator from the state of Texas whose wife said, "Let's get out of here. Let's go on a family vacation to Cancun, Mexico." And so nowadays we have the social media. Nothing like finding your senator hopping on a plane to go to Cancun, where it's 80-some degrees Fahrenheit, while millions of your constituents are freezing like popsicles. Water pipes bursting, icicles hanging on chandeliers. It's almost like a hurricane, except it's a frozen hurricane, where it's just freezing. And again, all the conflict that's coming up, and there are a few projections going on to the senator and his wife and family, is because of what? The comfort of the body. Once again, all that is just proving Plato right. And this is before the time of Jesus. He was teaching these beautiful teachings to help everyone come into a deeper understanding of the truth. Because that's what the ancient Greeks were trying to teach. Know thyself. That's what you could summarize the teachings of the ancient Greeks. Know thyself. That's what Plato was teaching. So it's beautiful to be able to have such profound teachings. That's one I just could not let go by. But also then the movie is helping us start to bring it into practical application. And hopefully this is for our mind, for healing our perception of what we believe we need. Because what is believed to be needed is part of consumerism. It's part of all conflicts and struggles and challenges and wars. It's a belief in the mind. The poison that's underneath this world is a belief in the mind. And that's why we study A Course in Miracles, because Jesus is like the master, the way, the truth, and the life. He's just guiding us down. He says there's a light, there's I amness underneath that poison pill. And the purpose is to use your life to dive down beneath the poison, reach the light underneath the poison, the light of I amness. All right, some contrast. We see the fish and the birds and we're talking about love, and mentioned even by Darwin 95 times. Only twice he mentioned survival of the fittest. And then we see a couple human children with a cake. Now, you find what you're looking for. That's how powerful your mind is. That you'll focus on that which you believe, and what you believe is what you want to believe. There's something underneath thoughts and beliefs, and that's called desire. What you pray for, you do receive, always. What you desire, you do receive, always, 100%. You can give up the lie that you pray to God for things and don't receive them. Oh, you do. The world you perceive is a reflection of desire and beliefs and thoughts. So when they use the words like love and cooperation, and even when you hear a speaker like that talking about democracy in terms of micro decisions, we'll say hundreds of decisions every second. That shows you how important choice is, because that's what they're talking about when they talk about democracy. They're talking about choice. And Jesus says you are choosing continuously, even if you're not aware of it. You are choosing continuously. It's not about just emphasizing, oh, I've got a big choice to make. Who should I date and who should I marry? What subject shall I study in university? Where should I live? What should I do with my day? No, that's just more the surfacey thing. But the mind, Jesus says, never sleeps, and it's very active and very powerful, and it's making decisions continuously. So that's part of forgiveness, is to raise up the unconscious mind so that you are consciously aware of what you're deciding for, and then you can take the real alternative, which basically is heaven is the decision I must make. You can actually decide for heaven. That's in the realm of your decision-making capacity. Heaven. Heaven takes the form of a decision while you believe in opposites, but the true heaven is just a state of pure oneness and abstraction, abstract light. But in terms of form, heaven takes a decision, which we could call the atonement. Jesus calls it the atonement, the correction in the mind. But it gives new meaning to like lesson 152 from the workbook of A Course in Miracles. The power of decision is my own. This movie is helping us, giving us more meaning, more context to lesson 152. The power of decision is my own. And if fish can change direction in a split second, if birds can change direction, I mean, everybody's so happy now. Everybody tells me, David, did you see the latest flash mob video? The humans are late in that game. The fish have been doing it. The birds have been doing it. And now we're excited about our flash mobs videos. We're late into the game. The humans are. But even that, we have, in the Olympics, don't we have a category of synchronized swimming? You see, we even take it in our competitive, we have to make it competing countries, so we always have to throw the competition in. We can't just, for the fun of it, everybody dance now. You have to, the ego has to make something competition out of everything, even the Olympics. Even synchronized swimming, But what we're realizing, what we were just told, is that the essence of human nature, if you really look for it, even in the animal kingdom, we'll say, is love, cooperation, and democracy or decision. And there's a sense of care and a sense of sharing and a sense of connection that's there. Even in the animal kingdom, the mother taking care of her babies, there's a sense of care there. And that is what you find when you really look open-eyed and honestly in the world. And that means let go of the competitive thoughts in your mind. Let go of the belief in scarcity and lack. Let go in the belief that there's only a limited amount of resources and everything, when the entire cosmos that you perceive is one unified whole. It's one dance. It's like one big happy dance is really what's going on. From the forgiven perspective, from the Holy Spirit's perspective, it's a simultaneous dance. And it's beautifully reflecting the love of heaven. It's like a bright reflection of the love of heaven. So this movie is basically just saying, what do you want to see? Do you want to pick out evidence for scarcity and fear and competition, or would you rather look upon a world of harmony, where all things work together for good, where everything is perfectly in harmony, in place, based on the perspective? And as we go on, we're going to hear about our heart. You hear a lot of times people say, what do you feel in your heart? In this movie, they're going to explore that. What does that mean? They're going to explore the idea of the connection that's available in mind with a new purpose that you can radiate. It's kind of like in the the famous Penguin movie, what's your heart song? We're going to find the meaning in this movie today of what is my heart song. What is in the core? A lot of times it's such a world based on separation and fragmentation that even when people talk about spirituality, people will say, get out of your head and get into your heart. What does that mean? It's not so simple as get out of your intellectual thinking and get into your emotions. It's much deeper than that. It's like, what is at the core of our hearts? That's what we're looking for. That's what we're asking for. We're asking for a deeper awareness of what is at the heart, at the core of our very being. So yeah, there's a scientist that's saying it sounds, unfortunately, he says, like New Age ideas, that you create your own reality. What Jesus tells us is you project the world that you perceive, and he says if you want only love, pray, want. If you want only love, you will see nothing else. So it's clearly pointing that it's a perceptual problem. It's not an economic problem or a financial problem. It's not an interpersonal problem. It's not the human versus nature. It's not an environmental issue. It's a question of identity. Who am I? The true answer is the Christ, which will lead us through forgiveness to another way of looking at the world, lead us to a happy dream, a healed perception, a unified perception, the quantum field that Dean was just saying, it's not really that unusual at all in quantum physics, because the quantum field is completely connected, and that's what everything is pointing towards. So we only have to listen to some words from Jesus. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings that I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that happens to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. It's all an experience in the mind. He also tells us what happens is what I desire, and what does not occur is what I do not want to happen. It's projection makes perception, so beyond all perception is the light, but you don't reach the light until you allow perception to be straightened out. What does that mean? Purified awareness, unified awareness, holistic thinking, holistic perceiving. This is the answer. And once you start to see how important this is, then when you seem to wake up in the morning, that's when you start again your conscious devotion to forgiveness. More than economy, more than survival of the body, more than the feeling of what do I have to do to protect or to save my family, save my country, save my neighborhood. Jesus is saying, no, salvation is for the mind, and it's only achieved through peace. Only the mind. Salvation only relates to the mind. It doesn't relate to persons. That's a big thing in this world, in Christianity. Remember, I don't know if you had that growing up, you're talking to somebody and then they look you in the eye and they go, "Are you saved?" saved. Really, the interpretation is your mind at peace. That's saved. It's not a personal salvation. You're not trying to go around and personally save people. You're asking that your mind, your perception, be saved from separation. Your mind be saved from fragmentation. Your mind be saved from being cracked in billions and trillions of pieces. And when you perceive a world of fragmentation, that itself is the error. That's the trick of the ego. So beautiful. We just learned, even with the symbol of the heart, isn't that a new one? The heart informs the brain. A lot of us have been taught that the brain is where it's all happening, and the heart is just this thumping little muscle that's going on. But actually, with all the research on heart math that we heard about, it's basically from the core, even of the heart in the body, it's radiating out an electronic field, and that can be like, really? You sure there's research? Well, then we see Tom Shadyac sitting next to a dish of yogurt, and they ask him questions about his life, about are you married, and about his lawyer or his agent. He said, maybe if I think of my agent, it's moving right away. Those are really good experiments to show the interconnectedness of all things, and also bringing out Tom Shadyac's humor, where he picks up the little petri dish and says, "Here's my co-star." You see, there's humor. He's got that lightness, that joy underneath. He really is like a child exploring the meaning of life. And you can see it in his movie here. He's sharing from his heart. He's made this movie from his heart, not to make millions of dollars, not to sell millions of theater tickets, not to keep the agents and the actors and the producers and the screenwriters all happy, but he's asking questions for all of humanity. He's asking questions for the whole universe, because he cares, he really cares. He has compassion, he has love, he wants to find the source of that love. He's actually a very devoted Christian man, and he hasn't mentioned Jesus or Christ once in the movie, but he said it in a million different ways. Where is the compassion? Where is the love? Where is the care? Beautiful. That's what we need, is these kind of inspirational movies. They show it, witnesses practically all over the world in any direction that you look. And it still comes back to that final question. He was saying, what's right with the world? And he said, hopefully we can all answer that with I am. That's an interesting idea. What's right with the world? It goes beyond the wrongness to the right-mindedness of I am right with the world. I am looking in a right way at the world and experiencing my connection with everything and everyone. I remember in the workbook of A Course in Miracles, Jesus does say that the purpose of the world is you. I am the goal the world is searching for. Jesus actually puts that in the workbook of A Course in Miracles. Imagine waking up in the morning and the first thing you think is, I am the goal the world is searching for. That is using this I am phrase as Jesus uses it in the workbook of A Course in Miracles. To the ego, that is the most arrogant statement ever. I am the goal the world is searching for. Because to the ego, the personality is what the I am is. But not to Jesus. He's saying, no, try it on in your mind in a different way. I am the goal the world is searching for. That's how you live out of your heart. You're not living out of expectations with parents and friends and relatives, expectations of governments, expectations of what it means to be a citizen, explanations and expectations of what it means to be a human being. No, it actually flips around when your heart gets into, I am the goal the world is searching for. And then finally, you don't even have to have it be that long. You can just end up with, I am. That's even simpler. That's the simplest experience it is. Imagine being happy and content with I am. Wow, that's spiritual awakening. It's interesting, I was just praying before we're starting, and one of the lines that really helped me from Jesus, from the text, was, you are not responsible for the error. You are responsible for accepting the correction of the error. So I think that's important when we watch a movie like we just watched, because there's a lot of graphic images, both at the personal level, interpersonal level, and then even a lot of more at the global level. It's just important to remember that we're all joined in accepting the correction for the error. That's really what our focus is. And we do have to allow the darkness, these false beliefs and thoughts, to come into awareness, but we're not asked to hold on to it. We're asked to release it to the Holy Spirit. So that's always important to remember when you watch any of these movies, especially if you start to feel any sense of heaviness or guilt, is to let it move up and move through, but also remember your focus is on accepting the correction. And Jesus tells us in the Course, he says, the Holy Spirit needs happy learners. And as you open to happiness, then the happy lessons of forgiveness come very quickly. And you move through in a very rapid way. It's more like you're carried through these dark thoughts and move more quickly to the light. So I thought that was a fantastic movie we all just shared, and I'm very interested to just open it up so we can have you raise your digital hand, and Pete can call on you, and we can work through anything that still lingers after you've watched this movie, because I know a lot of you felt a lot of gratitude and a lot of just thankfulness for the support of what we have here on Saturdays, and also for the community in general. This feeling like we're all in this together and we're all moving through this healing together. And yeah, with amazing movies that we're getting every week. It's quite miraculous. So Pete, why don't we see if we have any digital hands going up?
Sure, yes. We have a few hands. We can go to Jesung first. You can unmute there.
Thanks, Peter. Hey, David.
Yeah. Hi there. Hi.
Good to see you. Yeah, this was an amazing movie. I actually it covered so much material in such a short amount of time, perceived time, that I think I told Peter that we could probably do a whole retreat on just this movie. I mean, this movie covers almost everything from quantum physics all the way to chemistry, to money, things that we're all concerned about. And oh, by the way, I got your book. Well, it's nice. I know you didn't write. I know you didn't write, but people wrote it for you. So I was like, oh, great! Now I have two books. They're both pretty thick.
For an intellectual appetite, you've got two books. But I have to say that second book, the first one you held up, Unwind Your Mind, actually was a website called Teacher of Teachers, or miracleshome.org, and then we put it with a lot of transcriptions of talks that I've done. So it's kind of like a whole website put into one book, which is really three books in one. But I think that's the how-to. That is, of all the books that have come, that gives you the how. Because sometimes people say, how do I do this? And I say, well, the Holy Spirit's the how, but they said, can you give me some specific examples how the Holy Spirit might unwind me from specific situations that I'm dealing with? And I said, yeah, there's the book. Unwind Your Mind Back to God.
So I was like reading. I just started reading it, chapter 1, and it started with laying the foundation. And I thought, oh, how appropriate! This is great. You need a solid foundation before you can build anything on it with any lasting effect. And so I said, okay, well, laying the foundation, and 3 books in one, so it can't be that bad. And then I was like, wait, I kept turning the pages. I was like, wait, how long is laying the foundation? It's almost half the book. Almost half the book is laying the foundation. I was like, oh my God. Halfway. I was like, well, at least you're giving it to us straight, you know? And you're not going, okay, we're just going to spend just a month on the foundation. No, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I love this movie because I think I shared before, I used to be in science, and I thought it was a complete waste of time. No pun intended. You know, it's just, I don't know if that's a pun. I went to college was the first time. This was 30 years ago. I encountered quantum physics in my physical chemistry class, and I gave a whole talk on the weirdness of light and how they did experiments and how you could not separate the result, the observation, from the observer. And they even used computers to try to take the people out of it. So, okay, we're going to do the experiment, and we're just going to see what happens to see if it behaves like a light or a particle. And then when they observed it, it behaved like a light if they observed it like a light. They could not separate it. And I also listened to a research talk from the IONS. I don't know if you know them, the IONS people. And they did an experiment. It was a global experiment. Everybody had, they used robot software to mimic something with no consciousness. And then they used real people to do little exercises with consciousness. And there was a real effect. And the experiment was too good, and as good scientists, if the results are too good, you're like, no, this can't be this good. So they did it again. And the result was the same. When a computer observed certain things, like during meditation or whatever, or they had little triggers. You do this, this, and this. And then they had a computer do it, and they had people do it around the world, all the way in South Africa. And this lab was in California. And the result was perfect. It was almost perfect. And so quantum physics is always, and that's recent. That was only like 10 years ago. And the quantum physics is coming up to the point where we're starting to understand that classical physics is wrong, completely wrong. Everything I've learned, I thought calculus was cool. No, it's not that cool. How do you? But so yeah, no offense to Isaac Newton. He was a genius. The atonement of defense was where I left off, lesson 8. I did that yesterday. I do it at night now because I know I'm going to start feeling sleepy, and then I just go straight to bed. And in there it says, and I follow along as you read it, that acts were not necessary before the separation because belief in space and time did not exist. And I was so taken by that because I was like, wow, belief created space and time. Belief. The power of the mind. All this was created, this Zoom, this computer, my hand, everything, this pen, created by my mind. Unbelievable, amazing. And then, but I want to skip some of this. There's so much in here, I understand. But the atonement was built into space in the space-time belief. Wow, how clever is that? It integrated into our illusion. It works with it. You can learn to improve. Okay, let's skip that. I wanted to get, here. As long as there is need for atonement, there is a need for time. As long as there is a need for atonement, there is a need for time. And its various phases will proceed in time. And it also says that atonement is a total commitment, not a partial commitment, not a halfway commitment, not, I'm going to go to school again at 50 years old, learn how to do a new trade, learn programming, and start a whole new career. No, it says a total commitment. It's very clear. It's a very short sentence. And I'm taking everything literally now in that book, everything. That book came, I believe, in 65. It started being written in 65, and they published in 75. But I think all the notes were taken down by 72 by Helen. And it was only a few decades after quantum physics. And even Einstein, who was one of my heroes, could not understand quantum entanglement. He couldn't understand it because he was still trying to describe space-time. That was his interest, was how does space-time exist, gravity, how does all that work, And then quantum came in, the quantum theorists came in and said, wait a second, you have a particle a billion light years away, an electron, you have another electron a billion light years away. There's no way there's any information between these two electrons. And when one goes up, it's spinning up, and one is spinning down. And it's like musical chairs, right? When one sits down, one is standing up. And simultaneously, when one stands up, the other sits down. There's no communication. And Einstein was like, wait, you can't go faster than the speed of light. Theory of special relativity, you cannot go faster than the speed of light. Information cannot travel faster than the speed of light in space-time. And so that's why he called it spooky action from a distance. Could not understand it.
Yeah. Which is good, because if you're examining the parts, like in this case, two electrons, billions of years light years apart. There is no solution, but to come to recognize the mind, that everything, as you said, everything is of the mind, that's the greatest undertaking you can take. And I know that Pete was telling me about your expression session that you were talking in practicalities too, like issues around money or issues around a mortgage, issues around job and career, having had a job, not having a job, having been offered a great job, but turning it down because there wasn't a spark, there wasn't a joy, it didn't draw you. So you're such a beautiful example of right now, you have that childlike wonder as you're diving in, and the whole experience of healing is happening to you because of your single-pointed commitment. And of course the ego will then raise issues of money and mortgage, and that's what we call unwinding. That's why it's got the big unwinding circle on the book you just showed me. It's like the Spirit has to practically unwind us from our beliefs, which with the beliefs made it all. And then we thought we were doing good with our jobs and our careers and our mortgages, that there was a lot of other people that were witnessing back to us, yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do. And now you just have this childlike wonder and excitement. You've got your books there. It's got your attention, fully has your attention. And that's part of our journey together now, is the unwinding. Because all of us seem to have to take practical steps that are part of the plan. And even though in reality there aren't decisions to make, while we believe in this world, there are decisions. And they do involve practicalities. I can tell you, I live with a group out at our monastery, and sometimes I would show up in the main house and I would just say, okay, anybody have anything you want to talk about? And sometimes we would sit there for like 8 hours discussing these things. And finally, after about 8 hours, I would say, now we do have a few practical decisions to make as a group if we're going to go along. And then we would have to take some time to be practical and really pray together and take steps. So, yeah, I really appreciate you and your spark you have for this, because I can feel the commitment is under that you really now have turned your mind away from what am I going to do as when I get older, and oh, there's your kitty cat coming there. We always have the cats as our mighty companions. And you're going to be joining in and praying and taking steps and letting it be shown to you. Because that's the good use of time, is to pray and to just follow the steps that are given. And we don't have to project it out in the future, because it always gets frightening when we try to forecast, oh my God, what's my life going to look like in 6 months or 2 years? But we're kind of holding each other's hand and we're going down the rabbit hole together. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate your transparency too. We can all feel your excitement, and you're giving yourself over to this, really, in a real authentic way.
I have to show you one more thing, and then it's not a question, but I was watching a talk you gave in 2011, and you had Francis Zhu sitting next to you. It was outside, the weather was nice, you were talking about cause effect. And now I don't trust any preconceptions I have about terminology. I even took an English class recently, a year ago, at the community college to fulfill requirements. And we had a whole section on cause effect, and I wrote a whole paper on it. And I was like, well, that could be wrong. So I Googled it, cause effect. And I just want to show you what Google threw to me. And by the way, I trust Google. The Holy Spirit seems to be communicating to me through Google.
Yeah.
That's how I found you. That's how I found you. I just put in ACIM on YouTube, and you showed up. You were the first one. And I just got to show you this. I'm going to turn my video off. Cause effect. Here's what Google threw at me.
From outside of time. Okay. Nice.
So the Holy Spirit, I think, understands this guy might get it. Can't throw this at anybody because it won't make any sense. But the space, and time come down into a cone, future, past, and in the middle is nothing. That's where we are, the observer, the present moment. There's no time, it's not a future or past, there's no space. It's right here in the middle, the cone. Right there is the observer. Weird.
Well, have fun. The Google symbols are going to keep coming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we can go to the monastery, Living Miracles Monastery. I'll unmute you guys. You'll just have to unmute yourself there.
This is hard. Hi, David.
Hi, Neetha.
Well, before we started this morning, before the movie started, I had a interaction and recognition that we have a project going here, an oven project. I'm on the team, and I recognized that I had gotten over vigilant and trying to make sure nothing went wrong. And so I became aware of that just before it started. So as the movie was going, it just automatically was going down deeper and deeper. And until I got down to the thing of not being responsible for nothing going wrong, came down to my father and my daughter's death. And as a child, I'd made the childhood meaning that I must have caused my father's death, that guilt. And then when my daughter died, same thing. But I was given a gift at the time that my daughter died. I had an experience about a week after of just recognizing that the only thing that went with her was love. And I had an experience of pure love. But then instead of accepting, about that time when I was inside with that, you came on that we were making a choice in the movie. You were talking about the choice between love and this world out here. And at the time it was about money and things. But I realized in that moment that I had made a choice between love and guilt. And I went back to guilt. That guilt that was familiar from my father's death. And it's like, when in an expression session, when I shared it, just kept going down, 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 until it's like I felt of the words that kept coming is I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. It's like the guilt went all the way down. It's like I caused the whole illusion. It's when it and so anyway, so I truly, truly, truly want help in how to choose the love instead of the guilt.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that. I keep trying to find the safety in not letting anything go wrong.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think it's beautiful that you've allowed yourself to go so deep and just been taken inward and down and down. And it's a movie's coming to mind you may have seen called Good Will Hunting, where the Matt Damon character, as the movie progresses, he just gets more intensely sad at the grief. And he feels sorry. He feels so sorry. It's almost like a deep purge of this deep-seated guilt. And then his therapist, played by Robin Williams, at one point just has to hold him and embrace him and just repeat to him over and over and over, it's not your fault. It's a very powerful scene with Robin Williams, playing a counselor, just hugging him, and Matt Damon just crying and crying and crying as it's just moving through him, this deep, deep feeling of guilt. And that's actually one of the benefits. That's why you're with your mighty companions at the monastery. And the backdrop is the projects, and the backdrop is all the collaborations and communications. But really, you're going through this healing process for the whole universe. And it does feel like, when you go that deep, it feels like all the weight of the world is kind of on your shoulder. Like, how could I have chosen this? And that is the thing that we have to face, because as we do face it and we let it kind of move up and through, then it opens our heart for joy. It opens our heart to shine our light. It opens us to the extending phase of why we're here, to shine the light, to be the hands and feet, the mouth of Jesus, to bring good cheer, to do what he showed us. Be of good cheer, be of good cheer. But after that, he says, be of good cheer because I have overcome the world, meaning I have overcome the guilt and the shame of believing I could choose apart from my Creator, apart from God. So that's it. Just give yourself the permission to kind of let it move through. And that's part of the way it's set up. Just you are giving your mind the allowance to face this. And these circumstances that you seem to have surrounded yourself with are really, really good. I was talking to Frances a couple weeks ago, and she just got the biggest smile on her face, and I said, what is it? And she said, this is ideal for spiritual awakening. And I said, what is? And she said, all of this. Like, she was looking around her at her life and the people in her life and everything, and it's like, wow, these are the perfect seeming circumstances for me to face whatever I have to face, and to light up, be the light of the world, light up in joy. So thank you on behalf of the whole universe. Thank you, Mitha. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay, well, next we can go to Ruth. You can unmute yourself there.
There we are. Hi.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi. Oh, it's so nice to speak to you after all these years. Yeah, thank you so much for everything. And I started the course about 5 years ago, and I was doing it with a guy. Is it the guy from Star Trek? The actor from Star Trek. I used to listen to him, and then I found you. And then I was thinking around New Year's Eve, it'd be really nice to connect with people. And I found the celebration of light, which was just perfect. So, yeah, just thank you to you and the whole team and everybody, because it's really helped me. But thank you. But I just wanted to share because, years ago I did Primal Therapy. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a kind of a way of letting the darkness come up. But I feel like with the Course and the Holy Spirit and Jesus, it just adds this other dimension of support, which is amazing. So when I'm crying and howling into the pillow, I feel Jesus's arm on my shoulder the Holy Spirit's just taking all the pain away. But I've been doing that for about an hour and a half today, which is why my voice is quite hoarse. And I was sharing that with our lovely break-in group, because I was finding it, the film was amazing, the documentary was amazing, but I was finding myself being quite tired and sort of dropping off to sleep after having these big feelings, because I'm going through a relationship breakup which might be a special relationship. I'm not quite sure, but I'm trying to be guided as what to do. But I just wanted to ask you about, in terms of the darkness coming up and the tears, and I think you said in one of your videos that your face was wet with tears for a few years. I think I'm about that point as well now. But I just wondered, is there anything in the course or the workbook to kind of that talks about that, about the darkness coming up, the feelings coming up? Because I know you talk about it a lot, but I haven't found anything actually in the course that talks about that process. Because for me, before I had the feeling, I just felt I was carrying this huge weight around with me. And then afterwards, I was just dancing in the kitchen and just feeling so much joy for the darkness having lifted. So that was my question to you.
Yeah. Well, I think Jesus does give us some pep talks in the Course. At one point he says, doubt will go and come and go to come again, yet is the ending certain. There's another time where he talks about, he said, prisoners long kept in chains with their eyes closed do not simply just spring up into the light. He describes a scenario where the smile has come across their sleeping face. So the eyes are still closed, but instead of a nightmare, the smile comes across the face, indicating the happy dream is coming into awareness. Like you don't go from darkness to light, you go from darkness to light, happy, non-judgmental dreams, and then you wake up to the light. It's a progression. So there's another part in the Course where he talks about the wandering, like it seems like you've been wandering. Wandering is just a good descriptive word because, like for example, if you get up in the middle of the night and you hop out of the bed but it's all dark, some of us can relate to the idea of wandering in the dark, like putting our arms out and walking very cautiously so we don't trip over something or run into a wall or something like that. And I feel like that's kind of how you have to think of this. Like darkness will arise, it's the unconscious mind, but not more than you can handle. It always comes up in the way that we can handle it, and we can call upon help to navigate our way through it. And that's much of the journey. As he said, it's the Course not aimed at teaching the meaning of love, but of removing the obstacles. And we can't really let them be taken from us until we're first aware of what they are. And so that's where it helps to join. Even we're doing it here digitally, and we join any way we can just to support each other and to nurture each other and have that feeling that we're not alone, that we're not alone. We have brothers and sisters and mighty companions that are walking with us and that are there to help us, whether we're just bouncing ideas off of them or we're just sharing some intense emotions and they're just loving us and listening. It is important to acknowledge and to receive the help that comes. And Jesus says, the lonely journey fails, for it excludes the one that it would find. So I always think of it as a very collaborative, cooperative, joining effort that we're all doing this together. So thank you for coming on screen here. It's nice to hear your voice. And yeah, even though you've been using it a lot to express, it's still there for us to all hear it and see you and feel the connection with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. We can go to Juliana next. You can unmute.
Hello, David.
Hi, Juliana.
I think expressing myself here is part of the healing, I guess. But I was watching this movie and I shared it in the breaking rooms. And I was sharing that watching the movie, and seeing all these people doing all these things like to the world, even though I have an intellectual understanding that the way I look at the world is like my projection, my own projection. But it came up a lot of guilt. And even, like it seems to me that it's very selfish just to dedicate myself to heal my own mind when there seems to be so many people wanting like so many things from me. And like, I'm really having a hard time because I know there's something coming up. And this week I've installed like 2 games on my cell phone. One is like this bottle's like changing the water. I spent like 3 hours playing it and I said, well, okay, Juliana, you're not made for that. You're addicted. So you have to delete it. So I deleted it. But then the next day I installed this new game. It's like a bubble popping thing. And I was like popping the bubbles. And I know that's something coming up. And today during the movie, it was really like, okay, so you want to go, to Mexico and you want to go there because you think you're going to have mighty companions, but you're just running away from your life. And maybe you just have to be there because you have the perfect circumstances to work on your mind. And and maybe your role is just to be there and just continue doing whatever you just popping your bubbles, your color bubbles. And, I don't even know what I want to share, but it's really like, I think there is a confusion of like, what is actually love? What I understand when I think, okay, you have to love all people, you have to love all beings. It really takes a form, like in terms of behavior of what I think, how this works and not sort of disappointing them or something like that. And so like I said, in an intellectual level, I know, but that's not the experience I have because it seems very wrong, whatever I'm doing. Even though, like you said, when I do it, when I just, like when I've decided, okay, I'm going to participate of every Saturday movie workshop through the whole year, regardless of what happens. So I've got people coming in for lunch and I said, well, I'm sorry, you have to leave now because I have to go. And so it's just really like, okay, so is it selfish or, I don't even know if that's a question, but I really wanted to share and to thank you for everything.
Yeah. It seems like from the perception of being a human being, it's a balancing act, and it has so many nuances. You feel like you pull back from this and you make a wave over here, or somebody is disturbed and somebody is upset, or even they can all seem to be pretty peaceful, but inside yourself there's the internal war can go on and on, back and forth. And so there is a purpose inside of us that is the answer, and it's a purpose that gives us a new way of looking at the world. It reorients our perception. And in order to move towards that, you really have to ask this one question pretty thoroughly with everything, which is, what is it for? Does it help with the healing of my mind? Is it expansive for me? Do I feel there's an expansiveness, like something's getting opened or stretched? that I'm somehow moving past some kind of clinging to the past, and there's like an expansiveness coming, or even like an opening of the heart, the feeling of that. It's very important, because through the ego, we're used to categorizing everything. We categorize our relationships. You've got your ex, and you've got your son, and then you have maybe some friends that you interact with, and some online friends, and you see there's the little boxes. And somehow the ego is saying, "Oh, that's a jigsaw puzzle there. You're gonna have to really work to keep that balanced, because you'll feel it if that goes out of balance." But the only way to transcend those categories, I'll call them, the ego categorizes relationships, and it categorizes things of the world. That's its nature. But as you start to answer your inner calling and really get prayerful on what expands me, what really feels like it nurtures me, what helps me feel more stabilized, you'll be aware that there is a purpose in there, and that's what does the stabilizing and the expanding. And Jesus says at one point, it's like God orders your thoughts. Like when you give up the guardianship of being the protector of your thought system, God will automatically order them back into be alignment to the light. But that takes a lot of faith, because there's been a lot of protectionism, a lot of defense mechanisms set up to maintain this hierarchy, maintain this specialness. It's a lot of defenses there. So I find that the spiritual journey is you have the faith and you pray and trust that you will be guided into things that seem very specific decisions, but you'll feel, again, more of an expansiveness. And the only other alternative to that is just clinging to past roles and concepts. And instead of just saying, "Thank you, you served me well, but now I have to be open to what will expand my awareness," because that's the most important thing. The ego always wants to see the love in some kind of form. So it tries to put the love, which is so vast, into a specific form. Am I a good enough partner, or am I a good enough roommate? Am I a good enough mother? Am I doing my spiritual practice well enough? You see, these can be very deep concerns, and that is a common tactic of the ego. When you start to feel this expansiveness and you start to feel drawn to something where it really tickles your heart, the ego will come rushing in with, "Why are you so selfish? All the people in the world are just doing what they're supposed to do, and you have to be the selfish one on the planet." That's how it works. It's always got to generate guilt. Always keep trying to generate guilt. So I feel like that's been part of your thing. When we talked about commitment, it was like, ooh, there's a bit of a scare with that word. And then when we even talked about maybe helping out or committing to translate on some things, then right away the ego said, well, look at your schedule, like that Saturday's your day for socializing. That's recreation day. It's almost like Jesus telling you, "Here, I want you to help me out on this day." And no, I'm on the playground that day. I don't want to come in from the playground. I've got important play things to do. And that's why it's a gradual thing. We literally give ourselves over, and we have to feel what really expands us, where we really can feel the joy. And we have to then trust that. And that's how it works. Even in this movie, they talked about heart math, how they studied all this research on the heart and how it radiates out an electromagnetic field and it touches everything and everyone. And then they've got Tom Shadyac hooked up electrodes to a petri dish of yogurt. I mean, what better way of demonstrating the power of the heart than to start to see, when you think about certain situations, that the yogurt starts reacting. You can see the needle move and him laughing, because part of it is he's thinking, this is absurd. I mean, I know I'm connected, but really, please, yogurt? It's like, that's a big stretch. But it was very graphic when that little needle was moving. And it was showing the connectedness. So I think you're raising up a very important issue, because for all of us, it's the unwinding of guilt. All of the shoulds, I ought to, I'm supposed to, those are so ingrained in our mind. And there's something in us knows that there's guilt, part of that wheel. And the answer has to be, what am I inspired to do? What brings me joy? And little by little learning to trust that feeling, that experience. And I know it takes a lot of determination. It's been, for me, a lifelong journey to really keep asking that question. What is this something that's going to expand me, in the face of the ego's doubt thoughts. So thank you. And for now, it's great that we have Zoom like this. You're in Switzerland, we're over here, and we're all digitally on Zoom, breaking into our hearts. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Juliana. Let's go to Marcella. You can unmute.
Hi. Thank you, Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Well, I shared a little bit in the small group before. I was sharing the last experience I had with my dad. He passed away last month. And last time he saw me, he was crying, and he told me that he felt regret of asking me to study the career he wanted me to study, and, follow these path to be good in terms of the world, right? So this movie moved me a lot, because at the end he told me, I just want you to be happy. And he was crying, and I think it was the moment for us to join and see that everything was okay. And I think he was telling me the will that God has for me as well. So when I watched this movie, I felt that I don't know, I felt like really light. I sometimes, recently I've been feeling like a lot of joy, but sometimes I feel like in a roller coaster, like I cannot keep it all the time. So I just wanted to ask you if what can I do, or if there's something that I've been always asking Jesus, but sometimes there are some times when I can hear him really clearly, and I can hear the guidance in really clearly, but sometimes it's like I probably feel like I want to grab onto some things of the world, and that's when I cannot hear it clearly. So I just wanted to ask you if you have some comments about that.
Yeah. I think that conversation you had with your father, you can see that as like a symbol of a turning point, where he's like saying, I release you from whatever expectations I had about your life and your career. And that's a strong, strong symbol of giving yourself permission to really go inside and see what it is that inspires you. Because much of our experience in the world is pleasing people and wanting to do things for them because we love them and appreciate them, and we want to do things that will meet with their approval. And we're shifting now more into being 100% intuitive. Whereas in the past, we were some percentage intuitive, but we were checking in. What do you think, Dad? What do you think here? What do you think? We're a little insecure. We want to know what other people's thoughts and feelings and opinions are. So I think with the passing of your dad, it was very emotional, but also it's like a symbol of turning the corner to more of an inner maturity and really feeling things out and praying on things, as opposed to looking outside or relying on people. And in the case in the movie, we can see that, Tom Shadyac, he was very successful, but it just took with him that one event of the bicycle crash that began a turnaround, a very monumental turnaround. And he said toward the end, he still thinks, am I crazy for giving up all the carrots of the world? It seems like a big turnaround. Even after he's made the turn, and he's clearly more happy now than ever, the ego still is like, not so fast here. You gave up a lot. The ego is going to try to make a case. That's just what it does. But I think it's good. You've made the turn now, and you have your purpose and your mighty companions with you, and now it's the exhilarating adventure of going into a life where you let go of all compromises. Any place where you were still trying to compromise with something in the world or someone, now you're seeing you have a great hope of freedom as you let go of that. So I'm glad that the movie and the expression session was impactful, and I'm glad you came on screen to share it for everybody, share the gift. But thank you. Wonderful.
Okay, well, next we could go to Annabelle, if you'd like to unmute there.
Hello?
Yep, we hear you. Hi, Annabelle.
Can you hear me okay? Great. Hello. Hiya. Hi. That movie was really amazing, and I think on the back of the movie we watched last week as well, for me, and so many people have mentioned the word joining this evening. I think that was really apparent in the film, especially with the flocks of birds and how each of their wing beats is like a decision, and how that affects the whole. And I think with the film last week as well, I felt more of a kind of a merging. I think it seems to have taken prayer and forgiveness to a completely different level, where it's almost like the words or asking for forgiveness or offering it using words is almost not necessary in that place. And I think the lesson 131 came up for me yesterday, and where it talks about going into turning the handle of the door and going into the room where all the light is. And so for me, it just feels more like a kind of a merging, and also with guidance. I think I have a question around guidance, because I think probably in this last week I've been I've been really opening up to following guidance, and the more that I seem to do that, rather than there being a feeling of sacrifice when I'm guided to go in the opposite direction or in another direction than the one I thought I would be going in, it's almost like there's what I think would be a gap actually is filled with, I guess it's like more of a communion feeling, and so there feels like more of a oneness. And then it brought me to a question about the ego, because I know that the ego likes us all to think that our minds are private and that the thoughts are private and that the projections are our fault, and brings in the guilt. But it seems like with the sort of merging or more of a communion that's happening with I am, then also it's seeming like that the ego is one as well, that there isn't really a private minds, that it's just the collective mind. And sometimes, like I've had people share this evening, and it's almost like there feels like there's a guilt because of dark thoughts or dark things that seem to happen in their lives, as if they're somehow responsible for them. And sometimes I catch myself having dark thoughts, and I think, where the heck did that come from? And I offer it for forgiveness. And then it occurred to me through watching the film tonight that perhaps that the ego is also just one. And so in a sense, it lightens the feeling of guilt, like individual guilt. It's almost like, and it helps to join with everybody, that the ego is such a it would have us believe that, we're somehow individually wrong and we have our individual guilt and it's worse than somebody else's guilt. And but actually it seems like it's all the same ego and it's all the same guilt and it's all the same darkness. The thoughts aren't even ours individually, they just come up and they come into consciousness. And I think so the thought of offering the thoughts that come up, like you were saying, not to get attached to any of the images and get dragged down by them, but let them come up and offer them for forgiveness. And with the aspect of joining and oneness in the film, I thought then that's really beautiful. And like with the Petri dish of yogurt, because I think I've been doubting the power of prayer and the offering to spirit any thoughts that come for forgiveness. And I always ask for it to be for the healing of all minds connected. But then there's a doubt that comes in, that how effectual really is this for healing. But so it was so reassuring to see the Petri dish and the bacteria, because I just thought that for me was like proof that it really is powerful, and the effect that a thought can have on some yogurt can, to imagine the effect that a forgiveness prayer can have on the whole of consciousness. So that was really, really inspiring, and I think that's really partly my question. You were talking to the lady who was speaking before. Sorry, I've forgotten her name, about inspiration and to follow the inspiration. And I think for me, the inspirations that have been coming up with work, for example, is to work with animals. But then when I've asked spirit, there's been almost like being asked to wait and to just kind of park the animals for a while, because for me, I can see animals are very secure. Like I loved watching the film with the birds and the apes, and because I think for me, animals has always been where I could really feel that joining, but it feels like I'm being asked to park that, or even to let it go. And but what you were saying at the beginning about the kingdom, about the kingdom of going for the kingdom of heaven first, and then everything else is added to you. So it feels like with the guidance, it's really being, not just paying lip service to it, but being really willing to ask. And then if spirit says, no, not that dog, you're not going to go and adopt that dog, for example, is to let it go, but without the feeling that I'm giving something up. And I have experienced a couple of times, it's almost like spirit just comes in and takes away. There's no sense of loss, but a bit like Jisung, was it, who was talking at the beginning. It's all the things that I think I'm going to be doing towards healing or helping animals or people with healing, that I'm kind of being asked to just park them and just sit back and just almost like live in a new way, or like even the inspiration that I would normally have and go, yes, that's it, and then I'd follow it. I'm thinking maybe that's just miracle impulses, and also addiction to feeling a certain way when I do help someone, when I do a healing session, that I want to get something from it for me, and so that really the ego is jumping on the inspiration. So I suppose that's my question in a nutshell: is how do I know when it's divinely inspired, or when it's the ego wanting to use form to get the love, in a sense? That's where I'm not quite sure. And I'm sure if I sit long enough and keep asking Spirit, I'll have an answer. But I've been really thinking about it for a long time. So I think I wanted to ask if you could help with that this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Annabelle. Yeah, it's quite an art, this prayerfulness, where you can go inside and be aware of your thoughts, and basically every thought that we have, every thought without exception, is either extending the truth or it's multiplying illusions. That's why Jesus says, and I have no neutral thoughts, I see no neutral things. And even Tom Shadyac in the movie was saying, we're not neutral, we're on a moving train, and then the question of discernment comes up. If every thought I have either extends the truth or multiplies illusions, then I'm seeing that everything's an opportunity for me to come back into my prayer life, my inner life, and really tap into the guidance. And I think that's really where the focus of your life will go, is more and more tuning into the guidance and following it and feeling confident, like having lots of experiences that are very joyful, very light, very heart-opening. It's very convincing that way, because all of us who've come to this world, it's a world of effects, but it seems very serious. The issues seem extremely serious. And then the more we relax and start to follow this intuitive guidance, then at first we can feel it, and it can grow, like you said, you can even feel a connection with certain things that feels like a deepening going on. And then even with resistance, if there's any resistance to particular guidances, just you're able to notice that. That even can be helpful, just to notice where there's a resistance to a particular guidance. But it's like a discernment is something that just gets sharper and sharper as we go with it more, and we allow the experiences to show us by our joyful experiences that we're moving in a helpful direction. And in that sense, I just think of it as becoming more and more and more intuitive. We start to realize we have a deep prayer life, like the movie with Father Keating, Thomas Keating. He just seemed to progressively get deeper and deeper into his centering prayer and his prayer life and his contemplation. And almost like he's on the homing beacon. And then even when he got the guidance to resign as the abbot, he did it because he was so intuitive at that point. He could slip off this major role that he'd been doing for some years and slip out of it only to be picked up and carried on to the next place, to stay with some friends and feel the expansiveness and the connection without the monastery symbol, without the institution, without the title. He just kept expanding and expanding. And you could see it on his face. You could see it in his smile. You could see it in his eyes. He seemed lighter. He seemed happier. So, we're just all cheering each other on. We're just cheering you on. I know it's been for you some major steps lately to leave, to come to Mallorca. Your prayer life is deepening, and it's like the old Jimmy Stewart movie. It's a wonderful life. This is a life well spent when you start following your intuition more and more, and just feeling the stableness that comes from that. So thank you for joining with us and sharing. Lovely.
Okay. Why don't we go to Muna next? You can unmute there.
Hi.
Hi, Muna.
Yeah, I'm experimenting with not preparing what I'm going to say.
Good.
to see what comes up, and it's kind of a tricky time to try it on because the movie was like bringing bits and pieces here and there, and I can't put them all together in a coherent thing to say. But when you said wandering, I've always seen an image of my body wandering, wandering, traveling, wandering, tired, things on the back, guilt or whatever. And I saw it so clearly when I went to the monastery. And so I know, it's like a mind journey. But when you said wandering, it just clicked with me that my body's not wandering. My mind is wandering. It's like this disengaging the body from the mind is so tricky. The ego is so tricky because, seemingly in time and space, and there's a body. So first you disengage from that, and then you realize there's an image of the body within your mind, and then you have to disengage from that. But last night I was watching something on the telly, and for the first time, I think Jesus was just helping me think this way. For the first time, I was thinking, actually, I'm watching these images and these people, but I don't look like them. The real me doesn't look like them because, no matter how much I heal, I'm still reacting, why did you do that? And I can get really angry or really upset or giving advice, the usual insanity that we all suffer from. But I'm finally disengaging from the character at a deep level, even in terms of imagery. My image of myself, because I'm still not completely healed, my image of myself is nothingness. And I have seen that actually a long time ago, that underneath the surface, there's nothing of me. There is just empty space. And I didn't want that. That was when Tom said inconvenient truth. That was a huge blow to the ego because I received that inconvenient truth so many years ago that really I don't have a body. But, like in intense trauma, the mind can sort of wake up a bit or go closer to the surface, and I could see I don't have a body. And I spent all this time trying to fit in, trying to pretend I'm normal like everyone else and I have a body, because obviously the ego, being as tricky as it is, convinced me that I'm the only one with that experience. So there was still, I'm different, I'm separate, even though I can see I don't have a body. But thankfully, when we were sharing in the rooms, I just got so clear that I can't remember who was sharing, God bless her. We're one. We are like one, inseparable. And it's the ego that hates that oneness. It's the ego that feels like it's in a vice. And so, and it can't come out of that oneness. It just can't break it. But the way the ego explained it to me in time and space is that I experienced a trauma and I couldn't get out of it. So I was, like pinned down. But now I'm like, I have no idea how to explain time and space anymore. I have no idea how to explain my experiences on the timeline. The traumas are getting all jumbled. And so the untruth has just been shed away and shed away and shed away. And we really are one. I mean, it's just an amazing fact. So yeah, really grateful. I mean, the ego did object to the movie because it didn't go deep enough. And I need to go so deep to heal because I'm so needy. And so, but all of that is also a put on. It's like an act as well. And I can shed that as well. And it's just also beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you. It's beautiful. I'm glad this is all helping, assisting you in that, coming clearer and clearer and that, and more confident in that, and that's part of it. It just strengthens in our mind, and I always come back to that teaching from the Course that only the thoughts of God can be extended, and that's the law of love. Only thoughts of love can be extended. Only thoughts of God, and anything else is then projected as if it has an existence. But because of the laws, ideas leave not their source, that all the thoughts and ideas that come from the mind of God never leave their source. In one sense, they don't go out anywhere. They're just strong within the kingdom. And then this world, you start to see more and more, it's like, wow, this is a projected world. It's and which is just another way of saying, attempting the impossible. If only thoughts of God can be extended, then what and where is this world? And there is no answer, only just an experience of turning inward, to that light and that strength. So that's always important to keep in mind when we watch a movie, because the movie had so many different things, and then even the metaphysics, there's now more different wrinkles in this movie. The brain, which we've learned doesn't really think at all, but it's used in a lot of metaphors. It's kind of like one of those quantum physics movies that starts to mix in a lot of different things, but the lesson for us is to observe, like the hourglass kind of looking thing that we were shown earlier, where we're in the middle, where there's no time, and it's all an opportunity to come back to that and feel that. So I'm glad it was helpful, not only the movie but all the expressions too. Thank you.
Okay, next we can go to Monica. You can unmute there.
Hola David, hola
Hi
todos.
David, hi everyone.
Hi.
I also shared in this small group in the altar session with my friends, and something happened that I didn't want to talk, but one person talked, and then the next one that said that when she saw the one speak, she felt the need to speak, and then it happened to me too. Like the movie, we are all very connected, and that really joined. And right now I feel like we're these animals that move their ears to where they need to hear. And well, the movie produced like a feeling of a lot of expansion. And then comes my rational part. It's always a but afterwards, and the idol comes afterwards. So this is the part that says, well, let's see. I say, well, yes, but of course he has money, so he can free himself. He's gonna have resources. So what I shared was with the group was that I come from a family that has been really struggling in this world, different generations of this struggle as a country also is the first generations of professionals, and they have spent really they have had bad time. So while I was walking my dog, I was remembering that my dad was telling me, daughter, not having a profession is very humiliating, and a lot of things that really stuck with me. Well, with the movie Sin City, I saw, I can see them as these movies that are just being given to give it over, but it's incredible that this topic related with where you're gonna live, what you're gonna eat, etc. So really that you can really create this isolation of trying to find something with more spirit, but that it doesn't give you the other thing. So that's the fear. Yeah, really, that's the fear. I have a register where I'm working in computers, and I left this business because it looks very similar to this movie Metropolis, that I was trying to find something more motivating. So I didn't have a good time until I had a lot of debts and everything, until they called me back. And that's when I say, well, I have a lot to forgive, but I feel like a contraction, strong contraction, like I am like this is something that is with me socially, family wise, and but well, no, but well, I also see the tricks, because I say, well, yes, I achieved this, but now I'm lacking this, and this, and I see that my partner next door already has that, but now he's lacking other things. So it's something that I have to tune in. It's like an eternal thing. You're never satisfied. But in this time, this contraction comes. So I feel like now I'm more willing to work with it, to let it go and give it over. But I just want to ask for your advice to help me with that process.
Yeah. Well, it is something that for most people is a slowly evolving process. And so little by little, every little thought, like the movie was saying, every thought that brings a blessing, every thought that's loving, it does have a huge impact, even though it goes against our conditioning of thinking that our minds are that powerful, or that our thoughts could be involved in anything like that. But I do feel like you're just taking your steps and having to be gentle and nurture yourself, and that's so important, because you don't want to sabotage or put pressure on your mind in any way. You want to keep it light and playful. And then if you are able to do that, then you can be more and more intuitive. Just you start to feel something very strongly, and you don't doubt it. And you don't look outside to have anybody else doubt it either. You really just immerse in it and give your heart over to it. So I think that's the main thing is just trust the whole process, and as you start to feel something in a very strong way, then be willing to really go with it. And in the end, if we keep doing that, then we end all sense of compromise in our life, because compromise was the belief that there were alternative things. And this is more of a surrendering over to God, just saying, God, show me your will, guide me, lead me, and give me those experiences that will build my faith. And it works. It actually does work. So thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank
you. Okay. Well, we can go to Tina. You can unmute there.
Hi. Can I be heard?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Oh, David, I can't see you. It's been so long since I have had the courage to come and say hi to you, and thank you so much. And that's kind of mostly what I wanted to do, was just really just express my gratitude for everything, every single thing. These movies, these gatherings, the way that they're structured now, I just feel like you love me so much. Spirit loves me so much because it's just perfect for me. In life, I don't have a problem speaking, but it feels like every time I open my mouth, ego just like punches me in my mouth. So there's always this huge backlash. So I've been afraid to join with you, but I just wanted to. And it reminds me of how Muji would say how when people would come to Mount Sahaja, they would hide from him. And I was like, why would they travel all that way and be in front of this gorgeous person and just hide? And it's the same thing. I feel like whenever I come to these gatherings, I'm hiding from you and hiding from the community. So that's what I really wanted to do, is just not hide. I really want to join. I am so grateful. So that's what I wanted to do most of all. And secondly, a question arises. I have a little bit of unworthiness that comes up because I really don't have any questions. And there was a point of time when I, more than anything, wanted to know this course and know truth. Like I wanted to know it. And then I would have the faith once I knew it. I'm feeling like a flip in that, to be honest. Like I don't have any questions. And I don't know if it was Francis or someone else that I heard that said it, but I really feel like trust is how I'm living right now. And I don't really, so there's some unworthiness because I feel like I should have really smart questions, and I really should. Am I being really shallow in my faith? But I just I feel so loved, and I feel like so much has come up. Really feels like it was so specific for me. All the movies, just so much darkness has come up, and I just feel so light and so loved and so guided. And I just, again, I feel like there's just been this split. Like I just want to, I don't want to really know. I just want to trust. And I just want to be guided. And I just want to just stay in this, I'm just not even, I'm almost sore. I'm sorry. I don't even freaking want to, I'm not scared anymore. the ego can just keep bringing whatever the hell it wants to bring. I don't even really care anymore because it just feels like every time it knocks me down, like there's just this opening in my heart. And so, I guess that's what I want to say, I think. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Tina. I feel your love, feel your gratitude. That's to focus on the trust, that's everything. And then everything else takes care of itself just from that. So it's different from maybe old ideas of spirituality, of questions and answers, and somehow if you do enough questions and answers, you'll arrive at the end of the rainbow. But it's more like the trust is so important, and then being aware of your emotions. You can feel yourself opening and expanding. That's so beautiful. That's the point of everything. And as Francis and I often emphasize, it's like the world can't really be understood. So the idea of trying to know something about the world is in one sense, it's a contradiction, but peace and understanding go together. And as you keep trusting, that's what takes you into the peace, the consistent peace. And then there's this experience of understanding that comes in, not an understanding of things, but just an overall understanding of light, of lightness, of happiness, of being happy for no worldly reason, not even having a circumstance or a reason to be happy, just naturally, shining that So, and that's beautiful, that even if you have has had a little shyness or something that just wants to kind of hide a little, this is the perfect way to release that. You just boldly came up and jumped on screen. So that's great. That's the way to undo it. I'd had to do the same for myself over years. I just kept showing up, and I would say to Jesus, okay, what do you want from me? And what do I have to do to prepare and everything? And he would just laugh and say, just show up. And I'd be, that's it? He said, yeah, but fully show up. Just be fully there, wide open, ready, willing to be used. Okay. Really, that's all those? Just show up? Yes, just show up. So it was great for me, even walking up in front of a church or in front of a big auditorium or whatever. I'm as happy as a lark, because as I'm walking up in front of the crowd, I'm just thinking, okay, I've showed up. Now it's your show. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to have some fun. And that's exactly what happens. It's just fun. It's very involuntary. We're coming out of a self-concept where things had to be so planned and structured and figured out. And now we're learning to just trust and show up. And as Eric's song says, let life unfold. Let it just show itself in front of us without having to premeditate it or, make a set plan. So yeah, I'm cheering you on, and I'm right there with you, and I feel your love, and there we go. We're just gonna soar. Beautiful, thank you. That's great.
Okay, so we can go to Elisa.
Okay, hi David.
Hi Lisa.
I was getting upset because I felt I want to share this because I raised my hand like an hour ago, I think, and I think they were not calling me, and I was like, oh, why is it they always wait? I have to wait until the very end of the session to be called. Yeah, I had all these feelings of anger and upsetting feelings, and I even fell asleep for half an hour, I believe, just before. Like, I woke up like 10 minutes ago or something. And when I woke up, I just had this very intense emotions of fear. And it's not the first time that this happens to me since I moved in. I moved into my new apartment. But since I moved in, I've been through a very intense emotions and darkness. And I kind of felt like I lost hope at some point, because I used to feel like before I would share, I would feel happy and better. But since I got here, I've experienced a lot of darkness. And I think that, like you said, when we have to be willing to let the darkness arise in awareness. But I think that sometimes I really hold on to it instead of letting it go or releasing it. And I think it's part of something that I've come in touch with, that I've found that there's a desire to suffer in me. There's something that wants to suffer all the time. It keeps rejecting the joy and the peace and God and everything. It's crazy, but I've seen it, or I've witnessed it, and it's something that wants to keep suffering. So I don't know. I guess it's the ego who wants us dead. But yeah, I've been going through a lot of darkness, and I even started thinking maybe I should have just gone to Mexico, like David said, just go straight to Mexico, to La Casa, or I don't know. But for some reason, everything seemed to unfold this way. And I ended up here in my new apartment, in a very nice area, by the way. And it just happened. Like, I don't know if it was on the script, I guess, or planned, but sometimes I would, regret and say, oh my God, maybe I should have just gone to Mexico, straight to Mexico. And maybe I would be happier if I was in Mexico or something like that. Those thoughts kept coming. And so I feel very, lonely and afraid. And I shared with you last Saturday that there's a business in front of my apartment and they keep their lights on. And they are very, they shine too much. And it's uncomfortable for me. And it's been like, for me, the way I have experienced this, I took it as an outrage. And I felt abused. I felt insulted. I felt terrible about this fact that I feel like they are not respecting me. I mean, I'm feeling all these things that I feel abused, even raped somehow. And I feel sometimes so little and tiny and vulnerable. And then the other day I was hearing some things that really, I felt really restless. It's about they think that that females are like we are like a weak sex. I don't know if it makes sense. Like we as women are weak as compared to men, and I've seen so much abuse even in the movies, and I don't watch the news, but I know that there's a lot of that, and I don't even want to watch, but I feel that it affects me, and I wanted to expose. I don't know what the point is. I don't know what the point of this sharing is. Maybe there's no point. But I'm sharing because I felt something in my chest, like a pressure, like suffering, like pain, like because I identify with being a woman and the weak sex and all those things that they've told us since we were little, while we were being raised. But I don't know what to do. And I also relate to the previous comment. No, not the previous one, but the one before that one. I think it was Monica sharing about the financial security and those things. And yes, I also relate to that because, as you know, I have a job, but a job that I don't really feel drawn to at all. I don't feel the joy. There's no spark with that job. But I find myself doing that job every day because I believe that it's the only source of income. And if I don't do it, because I can stop doing it today for good. But if I do, then where is the money going to come from? How am I going to pay my rent and my bills and everything? So please, I also share this in the Breaking group. I want to trust. I want to just let go of that job and all my worries and concerns and get to a point where you are, and maybe Francis is as well, where you just trust and you don't feel like you have to do something to get money because somehow it's going to come to you. So I want to trust that I don't have to worry, that I will always have what I need no matter what, because God takes care of me. But of course, it involves trust and dismantling of stupid beliefs. I know there's a huge belief, rooted belief in a scarcity and that I have to get for myself. I have to do it myself. That's how I was raised, and, get a career and the same stuff that we have all gone through. But please, I don't want that anymore. I don't want that. Doesn't make me happy. So please, I really want to trust and stop doing things that don't fulfill me just for fear, out of fear of not having money. please, I'm willing to do whatever because I really want to be happy. And I remember that you told me, hey, you can write a book and maybe it's going to become a bestseller in South America and you can finally buy your house in Hawaii. But then I have also these conflicting ideas like, oh, is it okay to have a beautiful house? Maybe I'm not supposed to have a beautiful house and things like that. I have this conflicting idea, so please, I want some clarity. And I haven't even started to try writing that book, but now I'll keep it in mind. So maybe now I have time, so I'm alone, to write a book. I don't know what am I going to write, but and yes, maybe that's going to give me some freedom. I don't know. And yes, of course, I dream of buying that beautiful house in Hawaii. I'm not saying that, wow, it's going to make me happy. But I don't know. It's just something nice. But the main thing for me is to trust. So I stop doing things that I don't want to do in my heart just to get money because I'm afraid of not getting money. And also, is there a meaning for all this darkness that I'm going through almost every day since I moved in? I hope there is. I don't know why I seem to lose hope. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. So please, some clarity. And I thank you for this. To have the opportunity to join with you is just a gift. I very much appreciate it. But yes, I just need some help and to feel that I'm not alone on this, that I have you and other companions. Because sometimes I just feel like being taken out of this world for forever. So please.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, actually, when I was watching the movie today, when he started talking about this house that he got in the hills of Beverly, he called it, I thought of you. I said, there we go. He got the house. And then it said 7,000 square feet. And then it wasn't much later, I thought of you again. It's like, no, now he's got 15,000 square feet. I thought, oh my, Elisa, Tom's doing it for Elisa. He's playing out the whole thing and making a movie to help you with these ideas, because we learn from each other. We learn from our experiences when people share, and he was sharing all his experiences from his heart. And also, when he went through that dark period where it's such intense pain, seeing light and a ringing sound that wouldn't go away, and intense pain, and wanting just to exit, just wanting out, bring an end to something here. So actually, this movie played out a number of themes that you and I have talked about. And we got to see how he had to surrender and navigate, as he kept going on. And it's pretty dramatic to go from a 15,000 square foot house that's completely loaded and packed with paintings and furniture and everything to a mobile home park. He moved to a mobile home park in North Malibu from Pasadena, 15,000 square foot, to a mobile home park in Malibu. You gotta love it. He seemed to go happier in that direction, which is a good sign, it starts to loosen up this idea of believing we know what would make us happy. He thought he was following what would make him happy, and when he was in the big house the first time, the 7,000 square foot house, and he didn't feel any happier, then he started to question very deeply. So we're on this journey together, and I do feel, in terms of the intensity that you feel now in this apartment, when I used to call you and we would talk a lot when you were there with your family, your biological family, you noticed that there was a strong ego tendency to project onto them. And then when you moved to this apartment, I think it was the Holy Spirit showing, okay, I'll take the family members out. And then it was the company that was shining the light in your window. You're ready to kill them. You see how the ego is going to go after something. And if you remove mom and dad and brother, then here it's this light shining in, and then you're ready to really go to war. Like you said, you felt betrayed, abused, raped by the light. It just shows you how the ego, it's always trying to project something as an external enemy. And in that sense, that's the only value. We really start to see more of what's going on in our mind when the circumstances shift. And that was a big leap for you. It was a big, big leap of faith. But it also is showing you more your mind like that. But we're on this journey together, and through the movies and through our online sessions and so forth, that's what it's all for. It's there to be there for each other and to increase that feeling of trust and that feeling that you're not alone, that we're in this together, and that's the whole point. I thought the movie made that point very well, that even in nature and in animals, there's this care and there's this love and there's this sense of cooperation that's there in the animal kingdom, and it's not this whole painting of kill or be killed and total competition and war and scarcity, which is the ego's projection. But actually, if we really step back a bit, we can start to see the harmony and the collaboration and cooperation. So that was good. And democratic, it always feels good when you can come back to the power of decision and see the strength that you have the power to choose. You're just getting more in touch with that. It takes time because we're used to pushing it outside of us. And in terms of this idea of judgment about weaker sex or stronger sex, there's a movie that just came on Netflix. What was the name of it? I Care a Lot. It just came on Netflix. Oh my gosh. It is the undoing of this idea of authority and control, and it goes after all the male sex role, female, all the stereotypes, all those things. It's a mind watch, though. It's kind of an intense mind watcher, but I was guided to watch it last night, and if you get a chance, that just came out, just premiered on Netflix. I'm not sure if they have it down in Peru, but keep your eye out for it. But it's a good one. It's a good one for healing those thoughts. So thank you. Thank you for being patient and waiting. And I'm glad you got a little nap in there, too. I haven't had my siesta yet, but you took it for me. Thank you.
Okay, well, we could go to Camus. You guys can unmute there.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
You guys can hear?
We can hear you. Hi,
David.
Hi there.
Hi. So I have had over the past 24 to 48 hours swelling that comes from some kind of mouth ulcer that kind of formed. And strangely enough, I was joining with someone and I felt like I was really holding space, not really trying to fix or give them any advice. And so I felt like, good about that. And I just letting them express. And then as soon as I was finished holding space, the ulcer started, and then overnight it started to swell, as you can see. And so the ego comes in and trying to, figure out what what it's all about. And I guess what I'm getting is that it's just a call to step into the power of the mind and to really accept the full power of the mind and see that, the thing that I clicked on the oracle and on ACIM now, and thing that the sentence that stuck out is that if you withhold forgiveness from a brother, you've attacked him. So that's kind of like where I feel this is going, and where what sort of the Holy Spirit is trying to show me about this. But the cool thing is that, like I did take the ibuprofen, which is some magic, but I really got a sense that like I was supposed to see that this like swelling was just a symbol of like every brother, every sister that I had a grievance against, and that I could see it as love, and like even the swelling is as love. And because like an ulcer is kind of like a very sensitive thing, so the swelling kind of just protects it. And so I kind of just saw it all as kind of like love, and there's no one against me. Like even this is for my awakening, even this body symptoms for my awakening. And just, it actually just like, as all of the ego thoughts and trying to figure out everything about why, I just kind of went deeper into like empty your mind of everything you think and think, and just like really allow to deepen into that. And so if you wanted to add anything else that you think would be helpful, and I think it's really just like a miracle, really. And it may seem like it looks bad, and people from home, they kind of are worried and concerned when they see it, but I just feel like it's a gift, to be perfectly honest. And I just wanted to see if you had anything else to add.
Yeah, it's a beautiful opportunity because, when we have physical symptoms or with the ulcers or the swelling, it kind of, when you came up, it looks like you were in a boxing match with Muhammad Ali and you went 15 rounds. Muhammad Ali got the best of you there. But what I find is helpful is everything is for non-judgment. Everything is to become more lighthearted with everything, and like lesson 1 says, nothing I see means anything. It's really allowing yourself to feel the feelings and give yourself full permission. And oftentimes people feel like when you were using the words, I was just there, I was listening, I was holding the space. There's many people that can identify with trying to just be present and hold the space and even listen to somebody, but they feel like they're sacrificing, like they feel like their face is going to explode in just listening and holding the space, almost like they've got to keep the pleasant, attentive face on and be a good listener, and yet inside they're thinking, my face is going to blow up here because this one in front of me is acting out everything that I've struggled with in my entire life, and I'm trying to look kind and attentive and loving. And so it can seem to play out. But once you start to see that it's all happening for you, it's all for the healing. I went through a lot of experiences where there was all kinds of body symptoms and all kinds of contortions and different things in my life, spraining an ankle, doing all kinds of things. After a while, I started to realize, okay, I get it. It's not about the appearances. Thank you. I'm getting the lesson. The appearances don't matter. I'm going through a healing, and I finally said, thank you, God. Let it look however it looks. You know what's best for me. I'm happy, to go through whatever I need to go through for the healing. I think the other thing too is it just brings the attention more inward to the feelings. Like there is no specific role that we're assigned in terms of form. It's more just being authentic, and there can be times when things are coming up and we're meant to express and then just trust that our brother and sister will be that listening ear and hold the space for us. Then there are other times when it seems like we're to be in a capacity of holding the reverence and respect for the darkness to arise. But you've come all the way out there to Camas and you've showed up and you're there for the healing and you're just giving yourself over to it. And I know that feeling where the temptation can be to try to judge the form of something, because that's just an old habit. We see an appearance and we want to know why. We want to know have I done something wrong? It's just an old pattern of trying to tie our thoughts and appearances together. When really Jesus is saying, let's just work with the thoughts. Let me work with your mind. And that's where we're going to have this healing. It'll come through. Just have faith in me. Just have faith with that. So thank you for just sharing all that. And I know you're deeply loved and held there where you are with your mighty companions. Yeah, sometimes when I would have things like that would go on with my face or whatever, I definitely wouldn't send a picture back home. Mom, I have a heart attack. What kind of spiritual journey are you on? It's like, you gotta just use some discernment and keep it light there. Oh. The world shall end in laughter. Yes. That's it. Keep it light. Oh, sweet, sweet.
Okay, well, we have one more hand up. Louise, you can unmute.
Hi, David.
Hi, Louise.
Okay, I had closed my camera very often during this meeting, and come again. And okay, it's a very, very hard time for me. And I thank you, Elisa, for talking about what you are going through. David, I feel so much hatred against God, and you are an authority figure for me. And a few times I asked you some question, and I didn't have any answer. I don't know. You have your reason. It's not important, but I felt like God doesn't like me. And I talk so often with Marga about this anger and let it come up. And also you have a video where you say it's okay to see that Jesus said that it's okay to have anger, but don't keep it. Don't stay in the hell of looping in that. And sometimes it's gone. I can laugh with Marga, and and a lot of times I wrote to her when I'm sure she is sleeping, but because she is 6 hours later from me. And I tell her how much I feel love and gratitude. And in the morning, I wake up every time in so much fear and anxiety that the anger come up. And I try to allow it. But now, I told you about that I went to psychiatry, and I think it's I'm very afraid to go back there because I'm afraid of my own power, of my own anger, and I don't know what to do with this. Maybe you can help.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. That seems to be what everyone must pass through in this journey. And I know for myself, I had periods of such anger that I certainly didn't want to put it onto anybody. I mean, it was one thing just to feel it and experience it, but I didn't want to put it onto anybody. In those times, sometimes Jesus would guide me out into nature or to go take a hermitage or whatever to just even let it up. You know, he would say, "Go, you can shout at those rocks over there." Or, you know, he was always very practical, like, okay, it's up, and maybe you need to seem to express it. The rocks are really good. They're really good receiving anger. You know, he would be light with it, but I would always follow if I had to go scream at the rocks or do whatever I had to do, because it was very intense. And when he says in the Course, anger is never justified, he's again not saying don't ever get angry, but he's saying that when we get angry, we have conditions in our mind that we have to believe in to get angry. In fact, if we didn't believe in these conditions, that something was done to us against our will by something outside of us, that those are the conditions. You have to believe in those things to even get angry in the first place. And when we feel fear come up, like you said, maybe it's the fear of the anger, fear of the power that seems to be tied into the anger. It's still, Jesus is saying, well, I can't take your fear away, but I can help you look at the conditions in your mind that you've set up, and I can instruct you in ways to release those conditions. And so that starts to take it away from God doesn't like me, or God isn't paying attention to me, or God doesn't hear my prayers, to, oh, okay, I need help with my conditions that I've set up in my mind, because I've set up conditions for anger, and I need help to get out of that. It's a self-sabotage. So that always has been helpful for me, is the sense that they're just these attack thoughts, and the attack thoughts are the ego, and they are generating the anger. And when you feel angry at God, that you are feeling the ego's emotions. The ego is furious at God. The ego has rage at God. The ego made up a world of time and space, and it wants God to pronounce time and space as real, even though God is eternal, and God can't pronounce the temporary as real. It's just not going to happen. But that's almost like a child throwing a temper tantrum. The ego is throwing a big fit, a rage fit against God, and you're basically feeling its emotions. But the way out is, again, to disidentify from the ego by starting to take a look at the conditions. It's the ego set this world up as a justification of its own anger and hatred. So the world seems to act it out and reinforce it, but it isn't really. That's not what the world is for. The world is for forgiveness. Everything is just for forgiveness. It has no other point. And when you're going on this journey, I mean, when you really are hanging in there with this journey, that is what happens. You feel the ego's emotions, and you let the darkness arise up in your mind, which has been so pushed away, and that's how it went. I know it went that way for me, and it's gone that way for everyone that I've ever met. I've even had people ask me, and they say, is anger optional? Is it optional? And I'm saying, they're basically saying, do you know anyone who just is in la la land and didn't have to move through the fear and the darkness and the anger? I say, no, I've never met anyone who just was born happy in time and space. No, I don't know that. So in one sense, that's why we join together. We join together to remind ourselves over and over to allow the anger up, but not to try to justify it with some kind of reason. Whether we put it onto God or we put it onto our neighbors, our spouse, or some people do it with their pets, These are sweet little pets, and they get so angry at the pets, because if the ego is trying to put it out onto something, it's anything that moves. It could be an ant, a caterpillar, it's trying to hurl this rage out onto something, and yet it only goes away as we're willing to just not hide it and protect it. We keep it by protecting it. We release it by letting it move through, like a storm cloud. That comes. Dark clouds come through, and the thunder and the lightning, and it's very, very dark, and it does pass through. So I'm glad that you have Marga as a mighty companion. I was just thinking, the more times Ken and I go on and everything, then people just they're so excited. Ken, David, they're on and they write us messages and everything, and we've got all kinds of things going on. but I pray, I join you in prayer with those, and I'm glad you came on today and could be on screen and share it, so you could share it with me in person. Thank you, Louise. Thank you. Wonderful.
That's everyone.
Pete feels good too now. He cleared his list of digital hands. That's everyone. Well, very good. Well, thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. Again, thank you for voting on the polls, the movie polls every week, and sharing what you really want to share in terms of which topics. And we're just very grateful that we can be with you and walk hand in hand with you in this journey. And we're with you all the way. I love seeing you on screen. I see all your faces, and it warms my heart to see you all there. So until the next time, stay in your heart. That's what we learned from Tom Shadyac. Stay in the joy of your heart. Bye-bye.